Fresh from the showcase here at SwissWatchExpo, today we have two incredible rose gold IWCs, both with tourbillon complications and a retrograde date for good measure. This is watchmaking at its very finest, so let's just go ahead and dig in. We have two very impressive rose gold and very complicated IWC watches here. When we got these in, I could not wait to show them to you together. They're two very similar watches and definitely some of the peak when it comes to complicated watchmaking. And that may not be something, or IWC may not be a brand you necessarily think of when you think of complicated watches like that. Hopefully this video will cause some people to rethink that. I think they make some incredible tourbillon watches. And because they're not exactly the first brand you think of when you think of complications like this, they don't necessarily fetch the price tag that some other watchmakers like Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet would for a tourbillon watch that would routinely cost well above six figures. That's not the case for either of these watches. Now, that's not to say they're inexpensive. These are tourbillon watches in rose gold, but definitely a much lower price tag than a lot of other similar watches in this class. So let's just dig into them because they are both so incredible. My personal favorite is the one I'm going to talk about first here, which is this beautiful Portuguese. And I just love the Portuguese in general. It's a really simple design, but I like that it's big. I like the shape of it, and the finishing on the case is great too, but that's not really what makes this watch impressive. Of course, it's this beautiful tourbillon here at 12 o'clock, right up at the top of the dial, which I don't know, most watches do tend to have tourbillons at 6 o'clock, and this definitely makes it a lot more noticeable. But let's be honest, if you're going to pay for a watch with this type of complication, you're going to want to see it, and you're going to want others to see it too. It's a beautiful watch, or a beautiful, look into this incredible dial. The case pretty large, 44 millimeters across. Now, just a simple steel Portuguese is going to be just 40. The extra 4 millimeters definitely adds a good bit of heft of this, but it's still a very dressy shape. And that extra space, which probably is required to fit this incredible 7-day power reserve in this thing, but also just the size of this retrograde date. Which, by the way, if you don't know, a retrograde date, most watches, if they do display a date, is either going to display it as a single wheel or at least in a circular sort of pattern, which is the way the wheel works. Even if it is just a single window that you're looking to see the date in. This displays all 31 possible days of the month, and as you'll see, it's in a linear pattern, or here a semicircle, and then once you cross 31, it actually snaps back to 1, which is an incredibly difficult thing to do. It would be much easier just to have it running in a solid circle like, again, like 99% of watches do. You don't necessarily need to have a tourbillon, obviously, to have this type of date display, but it's one of my favorites, and it is really a testament to the quality of watchmaking and just very difficult thing to recreate mechanically. And of course, a lot of space here to display that because it's a very large semicircle that, again, has 31 points on it to represent every day of the month. Something else, this is still a Portuguese at heart, so you do get kind of a squared case and these longer lugs here, as well as these beautiful rose gold Arabic numerals in this sort of iconic, it's a simple but a very iconic font that you'll recognize if you've seen any Portuguese. The Arabic numerals in this font is definitely an iconic component of it. So while this is very different from a standard steel Portuguese you might have seen in the past, definitely, even though the size is different, the addition of the tourbillon, this is still a Portuguese at heart in so many ways. The finish I love is beautiful too. This is a high polished bezel around here, so definitely a watch you're going to want to be careful for. But again, something like this wouldn't be one that you swing around all willy-nilly. I'm sure you'll have sports watches in your collection too for things of that nature. But a beautiful brushed finish here on the side, which also displays the limited edition production number. They only made 500 of these. As you can imagine, a Portuguese of this size with this type of complication, it's not one that got a super wide release or a certain, large number of production. This also beautiful brush finish carries over to this incredible deployment clasp here. You've got the IWC logo here on the buckle. The action here is beautiful. It's simple. It's high polished on one side, and you still do have the brushed center here. So just an incredible attention to detail on even something relatively insignificant like the deployant. And of course, this massive, massive case back here does have an exhibition case back, sapphire case back here, displaying this beautiful movement. Surprising to see as much steel here as I do. You would expect to see more gold accents. I'm not exactly sure what caliber or reference they call this one. on, but it is still an incredibly beautiful piece, and you can even see some of the underside of the tourbillon from this too, which is not something I've seen in a lot of these similarly complicated watches that I've seen. This is my personal favorite, probably just because of the size, and I am just a sucker for the Portuguese in general. But the one that might fetch a slightly higher price tag than this, it might be more of the IWC fan or more of an iconic watch for IWC's tourbillon collection, is this other 44mm DaVinci. Now this line tends to be a bit more prestigious than the IWC line. The DaVinci was actually where they first introduced their tourbillon complication. They weren't the first, but they were among the first waves to sort of add this into their watches, and that's why it's still a big part of their heritage now, and why IWC is always going to make tourbillon DaVincis, I think. Similar to the Portuguese over here, although this one's a little bit more rounded. You also see the lugs are a little bit higher, not quite as wide, and they do stick up a little longer. The shape of this is very different. We also have Arabic numerals here and a retrograde date. You'll also notice this is a chronograph watch, so this movement even more complicated than before. We have another retrograde date here, not a full 7-day power reserve, but we also do have the chronograph here, which is currently running. A single subdial, because again, there's only so much space on this dial for them to really use. So a single register here, which registers both minutes and hours, I believe. You got two hands here going. So they did consolidate them into one, because you still do have this incredible tourbillon here at 6 o'clock. This is a very different look than the tourbillon itself, I should say, looks very different than the one that's on the Portuguese. And I'll admit, I am certainly not a watchmaker at all, definitely not one to the standard that would be able to really get into the weeds as to what makes this tourbillon different. But it is incredible to look at when it's moving, and that's in addition to this chronograph running at the same time. The Arabic numbers here, a bit larger, also a much different font. I don't think this is an iconic font to the DaVinci, because most of the ones I've seen don't actually have Arabic numerals at all, I don't believe. But you do have these very large crowns here, as well as the pushers. They do indicate that they might be screw down, but they're not. This is not a screw down watch. This is 100% decorative here for these pushers. And this is going to be more of a high polish finish all the way across, which even for DaVincis that are not in rose gold, I see much more of a high polish finish with them. Now this does also come with an exhibition case back. Not quite as much as much space here to sort of peer into the movement, but you do see that this rotor is actually an 18 karat rose gold, which does match the case. That's something I actually kind of prefer to this case back. If you're going to look at it, especially for a rose gold watch that you're spending this much money on, I do definitely prefer having a rose gold rotor here to sort of look at and to block some of the steel or the metal components in this movement as well. These are both leather straps, both I believe going to be alligator straps. From IWC, as well as another brushed finish on this deployant here. I think that is a beautiful touch. And here you actually have IWC engraved onto the deployant itself. These are two, again, incredible watches for the watch aficionado, even if they're not necessarily in your budget. I think there is something that we can all appreciate. I certainly consider myself amongst you, particularly with the Portuguese, which is just probably my favorite dress watch in general because of the size and everything, and to really add that extra touch of flair with the retrograde date. And that's not even getting into the tourbillon here, which is just so incredible to look at, and really a testament to the standard of watchmaking that's at IWC. Even if I don't necessarily think they get the respect that some other more prestigious brands do, this should definitely cause you to rethink the type of complications you can get in your dress watch, as well as, what the budget might be to add a tourbillon to your collection. I'm not going to say it's going to be for everyone's, but if it's something you're considering and maybe IWC hasn't crossed your mind before, this should be something that might tip the scales in that direction a little bit. Of course, if you're looking for something a little bit more simple, we have a ton of that stuff too. So you don't need to be put off by this. I promise our collection of watches for sale for you can be a lot more humble and a lot more affordable than this. So give us a call, like and subscribe to our videos. I promise not everything I'm covering is as complicated as this. And give us a call so we can get the next timepiece on your wrist at SwissWatchExpo.com.